So, Kelly, a rather damp Rishi Sunak has called the election, a bit of a surprise for all of us in public affairs world and the world of politics. But what isn't really a surprise is where the polls are at. They've been consistently ahead. Labour have been consistently ahead in the polls for over a year now. And most commentators, including people like the great John Curtis, are saying that Labour are going to win a majority. I think that's probably right. I don't think he's going to get necessarily a Blair-sized majority, although the polls would suggest that. Where are you thinking it's going to land?
Murray, I think we're probably in agreement despite our different political backgrounds. Absolutely. A majority. Landslide, I think that's certainly more questionable at the moment. So I would say a medium-sized majority at the moment. I would say that a week is a long time in politics. So I would say anything could happen. If you look whilst Labour is ahead of the polls, if you delve into the details, you will see that on things like the personal rating of Keir Starmer, that looks more challenging. So whilst I, at this stage, agree with the polls and would expect a majority, and as a former Labour general election candidate, I'm personally hoping that will happen, I would urge a bit of caution and say a modest majority at this stage, but anything can happen.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. We probably all remember the 2017 election when Theresa May went into that and everyone was predicting she'd get a quite healthy majority, and she came out really struggling in the polls there in the end of that, and that was a campaign that changed that, so that can happen. So in terms of policy, Labour is going to have the manifesto coming out soon. I don't think the manifesto is going to have anything massively surprising in it itself. We know what their broad pledges are going to be. What do you think is Labour going to really be like once they're in power? Will they shift radically from that manifesto?
I don't think you'll see radical shift early on. I've always said the more radical Labour things will probably be in a second term. My own personal view is that Labour is a tad more left-wing than it's been presenting itself. It has been very careful, followed the old Mings Vase strategy, which has worked so well so far. Been cautious not to say too much about anything, but then the risk is do the public really understand what those policies are? So what I would be expecting out of the manifesto, rather than lots of new things, and I think there will be some surprises, a few gimmicky, catchy things that there has to be, but it's more about turning some quite long documents that have come out on the missions into more of those catchy sound bites, phrases that the public can hopefully, from Labour's perspective, really get behind. So not a huge amount of different things before the election, but afterwards, I expect a bit more towards the left. It'll be interesting to see what Labour doesn't say in the manifesto, and that can be quite telling for companies and organisations watching today, what it doesn't say. And I'm expecting Labour probably to be a bit more heavy on that business regulation, very hot on business expectations. I'd expect more of that after an election.
And this is where I think some of our clients and businesses generally should be thinking about at the moment. So let's all assume we're going to have Keir Starmer in Downing Street. They should be thinking now about how they're going to influence government, because government, things happen. They might come up with new ideas once they're in power, but equally there might be some things they want to do faster or slower. What should businesses be doing now to prepare for that?
Well, my first tip would be if you've got something good to show, something you're proud of, you've got sites, you might be manufacturing, do think seriously about whether you'd be willing to host a site visit from a shadow minister or Keir himself. If you have the opportunity, all the parties will be looking for places to visit, get that photo opportunity, that filming opportunity. So I would certainly say be open and be thinking about that and proactively contacting Labour if you've got some great things you want to show and engage on now during the campaign, so site visits. In terms of policy development, clearly MPs, they're all going to be knocking on doors, so you're going to have to save those in-depth policy conversations until after the election, assuming Labour gets in. I would be advising companies and organisations to be preparing, so very carefully monitoring the policies come out. As I said before, what's not in the manifesto is very telling. Looking at the details of the manifesto, where relevant things have come out. I would also suggest that companies should be taking a sort of a broader assessment to consider what a Labour government overall might mean for them, opportunities, any perhaps risks, things they may not agree with, things where they want to have a policy ask, thinking about that further and being ready to really engage quite heavily with a new government after the election. So preparedness and being open to some of those site visits as well in the meantime.
So of course, lots of the government's not going to be new because civil servants are still going to be there.
Absolutely.
We're fortunate here in Instinctif Partners, we've got a team that is really close to the civil service for a whole range of clients across different sectors. We've also got what we've called our navigating labour team, of which you are part. Tell us a bit more about how people can tap into that and the expertise we've got.
Yeah, we've got a large team, lots of expertise. How you can tap into that, obviously contact us. We will have a chat with you very quickly. The sorts of things we're doing to help, as you said, we've got former civil servants working for us, people like myself who've worked for MPs during the previous Labour government. We've got former politicians, even former ministers who work with us. So we're really well placed to give advice to companies, organisations about what policy impacts might be, how to engage well with policymakers. And you mentioned the civil service. Now, they are going to carry on working. They're certainly not going to be knocking on doors. They've got to be neutral. So there is an opportunity during the election period to still engage with civil servants in a way that you couldn't with Labour politicians who are out on the doorstep.
Cool. Well, we'll find out all about it on the 4th of July.
I can't wait.